Hola, bienvenidas, bienvenidos.
Hello, welcome everybody to the HIV 2020 online conference session. We will start giving some guidelines.
Bueno, en primer lugar, comentarles que esta sesión está siendo
First, we
reproducida
would like to tell you that this session will be translated into several languages.
elegir el canal de
So,
audio
in order for you to
dependerá de las
choose the audio
circunstancias
channel, please
locales.
follow the instructions shown in the slide. You need to choose the audio for the language of your choice by selecting interpretation and then the language. Mute the original audio to only listen to the interpreter.
Acerca de unas pautas de participación, comentarles que la
In
conferencia
regards of the participation guidelines, the HIV 2020 online sessions offer a safe and neutral space and operates on a zero tolerance policy for any kind of bullying, harassment, abusive use of language, aggressive expression of opinions, or any such undesirable behaviors. So the participants that involve in these actions will be immediately removed from the session with no prior notice.
Bien, entonces les damos la bienvenida a las
We
personas
kindly
que se están
welcome you
conectando por medio de Zoom y
to all
también
the
a las
people who are
personas
joining this session
que nos
through
están escuchando por medio de
Facebook
Facebook Live. Esta es la
or through
sesión
Facebook Live or
titulada
through this
Mujeres,
Zoom
Cuerpos y
session.
Experiencias,
This session is entitled
individual
Women,
y
Bodies and
colectivamente
Experiences,
de las
Individual
oprimidas.
and Collective
Muchas
Empowerment through
gracias por
the
estar acá.
Oprimidas Theater.
Les damos la bienvenida.
Thank you very much for being
Quiero
here
darle la
today with
bienvenida
us.
a mis
I would
compañeros.
like to kindly welcome also all our colleagues here,
¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo
my
están?
partners.
Quiero saludar
Hello,
a
everybody.
Lorena
I want to greet
Rofe, que nos
Lorena
acompaña
Rofe,
de Metoca.
who is here from
También
Metoca.
nos acompaña Mercedes
We also have the
Álvarez
presence
de
of
Hivos,
Mercedes Alvarez
Ruth
from
Linares
Hivos,
de la
Ruth
ICW,
Linares from
la
ICW,
Comunidad Internacional de
the
Mujeres que viven
International
con
Community of
VIH,
Women who Live with
Katia
HIV,
López también
Katia
de la
Lopez,
ICW,
also from
y nos
ICW,
acompaña
and we
Marilu
also have the
Blanco de
presence
la
of Marilu
ICW.
Blanco from ICW.
Bienvenidas compañeras.
Welcome, everybody.
Vamos a estar entonces
So
iniciando
now
la
let's
sesión.
start this
Les
session.
invito a que enciendan
I kindly
sus
invite you
videos.
to open your videos.
¿Qué tal?
Hello,
Les
Lore.
puedo ver. Hola Katia, hola
Hello,
Marilu.
Katia. Hello, Marilu. I can see you there.
Y a Mercedes todavía no la veo
And I
conectada.
don't see Mercedes. Are you
¿Cómo estás?
there?
Hola
Hello,
Mercedes.
hello, Mercedes.
Sí.
Can you see me now?
Compañeras, ¿cómo
Yes, I
están?
can see you.
Hola,
Hello, everybody. How are you
bien,
today?
aquí vamos. Hola,
Chicas,
sí.
hola. Hola,
Hola,
muy
Hi,
bien.
hello. Hello,
bienvenidas a
everybody.
todas. María Dolores está en este momento teniendo
Maria
problemas
Dolores,
de
it
conexión, pero
seems
esperamos
that
que se
she's
pueda
having
integrar.
some connection problems, so let's hope that
Entonces,
she can join
bienvenidas
soon. So,
compañeras.
welcome, everybody.
Comentarles a las personas
I want
presentes
to
que esta
tell you
sesión va a tener
that
como
this
como
session will
consistencia.
have five
Inicialmente,
separate sections.
Mercedes nos va a
First,
compartir sobre la
Mercedes will
estrategia
speak about
de
the
empoderamiento de la
empowerment
ICW.
strategy from the
Mercedes
ICW
nos
Latina,
contó con la
the
metodología de teatro de personas
training
oprimidas.
course that was, as a
Seguidamente,
result of
vamos
that,
a
we
ver
have this
imágenes y escuchar
Oprimidas
desde
Theater,
nuestra
and then
manera
afterwards we will listen to the
aproximada
experiences
hacia este
and
proceso.
their points of view
En un
with
tercer
regards of
momento,
this
vamos a
process
hacer un
that they
ejercicio
lived.
participativo donde
Afterwards, we will
queremos
have
escuchar
also
las
a
preguntas
participatory
e invitarlas
process,
a
and we kindly
participar
invite
en el
you, all of you,
ejercicio.
to join
Y
this
en un cuarto
process.
momento vamos a ver un corto
And then
documental
we
de
will
lo que fue
see
este proceso
a short
de
film,
estrategia
a
de la
documentary
ICW
about this
que
process
se
from the
llama
ICW,
Acuerpadas y
and
otros
that's
alrededor
called
movimientos. Y
Acuerpadas in
luego vamos a
Spanish,
tener un
empowered.
cierre con preguntas
And
abiertas.
then finally, we will
Entonces,
close the
sin
session
más,
with a
no se nos
Q&A
extienda.
session. In general, that's
Ahora
the
le voy
whole
a pasar
session.
la palabra a
I will give
Mercedes
the floor
Álvarez,
now to
nuestra
Mercedes
representante de
Alvarez,
Hivos y
who
UNED,
is a
que tiene
representative of
incidencia
Hivos,
política para
and
todo este
she's
proceso de la
an
estrategia
important role,
contra
an
la
important
ICW
element for
Latina.
this
Y
participation of
bueno,
ICW
le
Latina.
doy la
So,
palabra. Muchas gracias.
Mercedes, you have the floor now.
Hola,
Hello.
un gusto
It is
estar
A great pleasure to be here with all of you and looking at these familiar faces, being able to connect and to join together with many more people. Let me tell you a little bit about this empowerment the process that Andreina was mentioning. This was part of a, it seems that her microphone is muted. I cannot hear. I'm not able to translate.
Merce, disculpa, pero no te estamos escuchando en este momento.
It seems that there's no audio.
Perfecto. Si quieres.
Okay, now we can listen. So, well, I was telling you that this empowerment strategy was part of a bigger project from the ICW Latina, the International Community of Women Living with HIV, from the Regional Network of Latin America. It took place in 18 countries, and it was led by the request, the negotiation, and the implementation by those women living with HIV. This project was sponsored by the Global Fund, and the name of the project was to accelerate the regional action in favor of human rights, sexual rights, reproductive rights, and nonviolence towards women with HIV. So let's say that this project has several components. And the first one, or one of these components, was political will to move forward with regards on the care, needs, rights of women living with HIV. This was an element that was related with empowerment, as well as with this working directly with the women living with HIV from those communities within these countries that participated in this project. And then, by the way, this element of working with the communities and giving them this empowerment was really the ICW was really involved in this, so it was a great achievement, and also it was a great process guided and led by them. There was also another one with regards creating information and knowledge about their own realities. So this is like the general framework of this project. General information of this project. This is an ICW Latina project. As Hivos, we were honored to follow them, to give them this technical, political, and administrative support for the implementation of this project. 11 countries were given the priority, countries from Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean. 7 countries then participated in some of these processes, mainly at a regional level and in some of the activities. There was one country that was considered as new, that was integrated into the ICW Latina, and that's why this country was able to participate within this whole process. Next slide, please. The empowerment strategy that we use, in summary, is that the idea is that we wanted to create some changes at a personal level, as well as in the collective life of women living with HIV, just to protect their rights. A starting point from women living with HIV, once that they develop all this whole process in order to reach this project and in order to implement it, the fact is that they were not able to do this political will to guarantee visibility and the inclusion of their own needs within all these regional policies if all those elements were not interconnected with a direct work within the communities. And if there was not this open listening for all the realities that women living with HIV live within these communities in Latin America. So this was like kind of a bet, the great change that we needed to have as a collective level in order to have a response for women living with HIV. It is related also from the personal lifestyle. So let's say that a household and also at an organizational level, it has to be included. So this empowerment strategy followed this theater methodology, the theater of the oppressed. And these are also the basis of popular education and some other participative methodologies. So within this process, we had the collaboration, the valuable collaboration of Metoca, as well as from the network Magdalena Internacional. So thanks to this process, we were able to approach to two networks of different, two different networks of women, but they have like many points in common because they have this fight to visualize the rights of women. And it was also a great opportunity for all of us so they can strengthen themselves. Let's move on. Let's talk about how was this strategy developed. Next slide.
Bueno, la primera fase fue la elaboración de una propuesta.
Within the first stage, we needed to develop a methodological proposal. In this sense, this was a validation, integration, and revision proposal of this methodology. So we were able to strengthen all the skills. And mainly, it was from those who were going to guide those groups, who were going to be the facilitators of this whole process within the community. So in that sense, the international network and Metoca participated, and also Hivos was giving the feedback. The ICW Latina was also on this process of revision and assessment, and we have the assessment process with some other groups, and at the end, we have the final proposal. Afterwards, the second stage was the implementation of the training process, and at that time we have two different workshops. The first one was the regional workshop for the trainers, and in that sense we trained those individuals who were going to be in charge of those other trainers at a national level. So this was, the first stage was a regional one, and then the second one was a national. It was like in a cascade methodology. In this sense, we combined the participation of women from the ICW Latina, let's say that these references from women that will be part of these trainers as on behalf of ICW Latina, and then we also have some other women that belong to these organizations and to these feminist networks that we're going to collaborate with this whole process to implement the strengthening of ICW Latina with regards of these topics of human rights, rights of women, having this feminine perspective, and so on. So this was the whole group, the whole alliance that we have in this whole process. Not only women with HIV were involved, but also people with no HIV. So in that sense, they were like these companionships within the whole process, within all this methodological process for these trainers. Afterwards, then the workshops were developed at a national level. Those workshops were in charge, the trainers. The first trainers were in charge of these workshops, as well as this methodology. Together, they trained in average 10 more trainings per country. So these processes were very interesting. They were processes of maybe around nine days. And in those processes, it was very intense work, training intense work. And it not only involved aspects of their own bodies, but also creativity issues. The methodology of this oppressed theater tries to identify all the realities of women living with HIV. So within these workshops, national and regional level, there was a development of a construction process to create a final play. In that sense, all these women were developing this theater play, and at the end they show it to an audience. Later on, they will explain to you about this whole process, which was really interesting, that allowed them to position themselves within this scenario. So then the third step was the follow-up of these trainers, these facilitators. A key aspect was to work within this aspect of a vision, but not as a whole vision, not as an isolated one. So besides these national workshops that were developed, we also have theoretical and practical workshops in the following month and in the next year, giving this follow-up to the trainers and with the support of those methodologies followed by the international network. We also gave some workshops with regards on different topics such as sexual health, reproductive health, human rights, within the framework of the human rights state, as well as on the political will and advocacy. And maybe it's not to be surprised, but it was really nice to see how these women at the beginning, once that we have this training process and that once that we work together with these empowerment groups, at the same time they started having to have a more collaboration, a more participation, not only at the regional level, but also they started collaborating in these advocacy movements. So, and finally, we have these sessions with different empowerment groups with all these communities and localities that were in charge of these facilitators. So at that time, that was the situation that was lived within these communities. And at the same time, they were giving this feedback of all these advocacy issues. In Bolivia, I remember that they called this group from this facilitators group was called the seed group because out of them, many more plants emerged during the whole process, and till now, they are still growing within this network. So basically, this is like the whole introduction of this project, of the whole process. Let's move on to the next slide, please. These are the outcomes, the methodological guide. There were 124 women as facilitators of these empowerment groups, 62 empowerment groups that were activated within this process. So we were able to show these outcomes in the AIDS conference in Amsterdam, and it was recognized as a good practice. It was mentioned in the last session, and of course, well, leadership for women increased at a local, national, and regional level. It also, this process allows us to have this common identity and this shared agenda. We were able to own this shared agenda from the different levels, as well as having more and new alliances. So, as of now, this is the introduction and the framework of this whole project. Now let's move on to the most interesting part, to get to know from the partners that participated in this process so they can share their own experiences. Thank you, Mercedes. Mercedes is telling you that at a regional level and national level, also at a community level, we want to listen now to our colleagues, if they can share their experiences. I want to introduce Katia Lopez, who is in charge of the chapter in Costa Rica. She will describe how from working from a regional workshop, then move it to the community level.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días a todas, a todos y a todes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you. It is a great pleasure to share with you within this space, and not only here, but also within all the spaces that are open, so we can show and we can share the impact that this might have, and that this type of exercises has, and that will continue having in the experience and in the life of many more women, and as well as many men. Because These are the spaces that we are able to share with, and we know that the way it happened, it really transformed many things and many battles. As Merce was mentioning, it was a whole process. It was excellent, the space that was created. It was also challenging for many of us. This adventure started with this regional workshop, this workshop that was held in Guatemala. It all started as a process that maybe we were used to it. We were used to this type of processes. We were called and we were invited by our organization so we can attend and to be like selected as and to become trainers. So in that sense, I was identified with with all these training processes that I was used to. I was taking my notebook and my computer, my pen. I was just following this methodology, and I remember that within the indications that we received for this was to wear comfortable clothes and so on. So maybe I was thinking we were going to be in all these open spaces, and that was it. So that was. Uh, we needed to have these comfortable clothes. So when we started the process on the first day, it was as if so completely different. It was completely different. It was something that I haven't had before from the 20 years that I had been as an activist. And I was just in silence. I was just thinking, I won't be able to continue. I won't be able to move on because in that sense, I was always like silencing my voice, and despite the fact that I always speak a lot. So we were there trying to express our own bodies. So following the methodology that we were guided on by all these people, we didn't understood exactly how we're going to internalize that. Katia was there to become a trainer, but then how I was going to move and how I was going to share this experience with others so they can do the same, to speak with our own bodies and to laugh, to fall in the floor, to cry, and to do many things that they really represented a great challenge. So we started the process, yes, and we were wondering also why it took so long, why there were so many days for this workshop. So when we started the process and when they started showing the methodology, when ICW was there represented also by the country reference and in some other countries by the secretariat, so they started giving us the instructions. They started giving us what they pretended to build with this new process, with this new methodology. What was the outcome that they were expecting? So in that sense, in a natural way, we had many resistances, many emotional resistances, and also there were many expectations also. There were many expectations on how we were going to give that big step with regards of these new learning processes, with regards on accepting this new methodology, not by disqualifying it, but first trying it. So I know that many colleagues that were there at that moment also from the consultancy aspect, they had some of the experiences and they were relaxed. They were more relaxed. In a sense, they knew exactly what was going on. They have this experience of theater, and some of them, they didn't have any experience at all with regards to theater. They didn't know exactly how to work or how to participate that way. And they were, in fact, there were these references that for so many years they had been in charge of this topic of guiding groups, guiding women in the different countries. So in a way, they were protecting us. We were overprotected, and it was in that sense the idea the idea in that sense is that it was not only me who was going to open, but then later on I was going to share with the others, knowing that this methodology will transform their lives. That we've been working for more than 25 years in this empowerment process with women living with HIV, when we have seen that many lives have been affected and that many times we just have moved backwards because sometimes we take 10 steps and we move back 15 with this topic of empowerment. So that we know that we work only with the consideration of the topic of HIV, but that we just rejected this type of strategies that in a sense allow us to place in an isolated way HIV, remembering also that we were working with women that were facing different aspects of violence from their childhood. And then suddenly magic occurred. We have these 3 preliminary days. In general sense, I know that it was like a strong battle. It was the Magdalena's network, the team of Hivos, the team of ICW, the team of Hivos. Let's convince all these women to give themselves the opportunity to prove this methodology, because between ICW, we are like we defend what we believe. We are there with our empowerment. So if we're not convinced that this is working, we're not involved. So we know that for the Hivos team was a great challenge. And I think that for all of us, for Lore, for Merce, who was there in between with all this stress, and Andreina also, they were trying to convince us that what they were showing us will help us really, that this methodology will really help us, and that giving us the opportunity to transform us, that this was a methodology that was something to add, but not something to get rid of. So I think that this whole process of 10 days in Guatemala, the first 3 days were a complete struggle. It was a great challenge, but then the rest of the days really let us to release. And at the end of the day, we were completely open. Most of all of us, we were open, not as a trainer, but as women, of what we represent, of what we have, of what we are carrying, of what we had not said, of what we had not, been silenced, because, well, I'm an empowered woman, but whatever I said to the others, sometimes we had forgotten what we had in the inside, that we needed also to express it, and that we needed to transform and to project it so we can work with some other women. So I think that the challenge here of this workshop in Guatemala had plenty of pikes, ups and downs. I mean, and now that doesn't mean that we didn't move on from Guatemala. No, I was thinking, how do I move on? How do I take this to another country? I know that I'm more accessible to open to new things, although there's fear, but I am not sure if I can share it with Anita, or if I want to share with some other colleague, no? Because they might think that this is not working, or will it be? But maybe it worked for me, but not for the others. So we were there with this commitment. It was part of the project also. We needed to cover certain indicators. We need to reach some goals. And also we need to do this outreach. I was out of my home for 10 days, and I just needed to separate my personal life, my husband and my kid from that. So, and the thing is that they know about it, but thinking on the other woman, how they were going to do that, without thinking if the methodology works or not, if I was going to replicate it or not, because I was assimilating it as a person, as an individual, but not as a facilitator, not as a trainer, and how I was going to make it happen in Costa Rica, and how also the other colleagues in the region were going to take it to their own countries, because there were many different features and characteristics in their own countries, and we were just taking this whole package with a different to another country, with different cultures, with different type of violences that they had opened in different ways, and with different scenarios with regards of human rights issues. So I was thinking on all of that, and I was taking that package, and I was thinking in the colleagues in Guatemala, and I was also thinking in the colleague from El Salvador, and I was thinking how the others were going to take this package to their own countries, because we had that commitment. We had that commitment with women. Otherwise, we weren't able to speak and to work within these topics that allow us to improve the quality of life of women. So we had that commitment. We have that commitment with Hivos. We had that commitment with the Global Fund, and we have that commitment with ourselves. So we went back to our own countries, and then the challenge really started. I came back to my country and I was fully transformed personally, and I was just walking, dancing, and singing in the streets in Guatemala that I've never sang, but that I knew that they were there for me to sing. And I know that Mercedes is laughing because when we were in this festival, we weren't we didn't even ever perform in theater, but we were just embedded in that craziness, and we all at the end were convinced. We ended singing these songs that speak about what we want to do and that sometimes we have hidden for many years because of this society that oppresses us and these cultures that limits us. So we move forward and we came back to our own countries with this challenge in our package, in our luggage, that having these different things, different emotions. And if Guatemala was strong, the replication in my country was even stronger, because we came back to work with the support from Metoca, from the Magdalena's network, from Hivos. We have this companionship from Ruth also as a reference of this chapter in the country, that maybe she had also the same doubts and questions on how we were going to do it, and being able to show it to 11 colleagues that we were able to have in this workshop at a country level. It was another great experience. In that workshop, I was able to convince myself, to finish convincing myself, because I knew that there was something different, that there was something different that we needed. For many years, we were tired. For many years, they said to you, if you don't have this adherence to treatment, then you will die. Not having this force on telling them, you have died for many years because of these violence issues. In reality, you are alive. So you wonder then, why are you living? Are you happy? Have you really been able to realize and to be a fulfilled activist? Have you been followed the same ideas? Sometimes maybe having this blaming yourself. So I came back convinced, and I know that this project transformed my life. There are many colleagues and many friends that can share. We can have many more conferences with regards of this topic. But the idea is that this really transforms your life because you discover yourself. You give this space as a woman, and as a woman living with HIV that for many years you had lived with, that sometimes you need to hide your fear, and then you need to be brave enough so many more walk. But thinking on how many times you had failed and then how many times you had given the opportunity, realizing that you haven't worked on that, realizing that you need to build yourselves and that you need to create that empowerment within yourselves, because when there is this fear of the woman that don't want to speak, or that they are tired on taking this antiretroviral treatment, but that they do it because that's the opportunity for them to live. But the idea is that they feel free on saying that they are tired, on saying that they don't like how their bodies have changed because of the treatment that they are following. And they are in this fear because they are still living in this violence environment within their partners. And it's been 20 years taking this treatment, but that they had failed following the treatment, but that they remain in silence because of that. So this opportunity gave us, this process gave us the opportunity to have this and to make our voices heard. In Costa Rica, I remember that it was 8 days, and they say, This workshop would be for 8 days, and the experts that created that methodology told us that it's 10 days. So that it's only in 10 days, you will have the whole experience, but not in 8 days. So no. If we need to get rid of some things, we will do that. But 10 days, it's not possible. They cannot do it. 8 days, and they are like, they have to negotiate these 8 dates. 10 days, it's impossible. Some other colleagues were not able to attend to these workshops because they weren't able to get rid of their houses. Some of them, they needed to leave their babies, or some of them needed to take their babies to the whole process, and it was really worth it. At the end, it was a process that we were able to rediscover all the things that I felt in Guatemala. They were able to feel it also in Costa Rica. It was a very transformative process. There was the need not to forget about HIV, but also to get to know that there are so many things that are interconnected with women who live with HIV, and that we needed to include those ideas, that we needed to have these processes from the very moment that we were little, from the very moment that we were kids. And maybe at that moment that we started living this impact of this HIV diagnosis, many of these women that had this diagnosis from 10 to 12 years ago never wonder exactly how they felt of not living with HIV, how they felt just by being women that had lived violence and that had lived this sexual aggression with no voice, and that sometimes they need to take care of their own family, 3 or 4 kids, because their husbands died because of HIV, and nobody wondered how they were feeling. So that was the whole process for Costa Rica. So based on the experience of other colleagues, I know that it was similar in the other countries. First, women at the beginning, women were really resisting to this methodology, but then they were able to move on and to move forward. This methodology it is a great methodology. It is a methodology that we've been able to share it with some other spaces. And we do believe that this can transform and that can be implemented in so many scenarios and in many realities for women, not only for women living with HIV. Because if it was included in HIV, but also giving these opportunities and these tools to women so we can understand what is our own special condition, being able to work within ourselves the fact that we are women, I think that we can implement this methodology in many other spaces. So that was the experience from the perspective of Costa Rica.
Realmente nos dimos cuenta que éramos.
I think that it's similar from the other countries, because the thing is that here we think about something more than HIV, something more than adherence. You stop doubting if you want to take or not the pills once that you feel that you are a realized person. When you really accept a diagnosis because you are living the life that you like to live, that despite or besides that, or because of the circumstances, whatever the circumstances, you get this diagnosis, and since then you start living with this HIV diagnosis. And then really you will accept your condition when you feel satisfied and complete with the life that you can have, the life that you have, where you can change and where you can achieve all the things that you like and that you really enjoy. So I think that really this is a great experience. Andreina, let me know if I have more time or not. But at the end, this is an experience that cannot be summarized in 20 minutes. This is an experience of more than 100 women, 124 women that received this training. But I think that this number was even bigger when we were able to share these experiences within the communities. So
habernos dado la
So I think
oportunidad
that
de
being able
hacerlo,
to
porque
giving us
ya
this
para este
opportunity,
corte de la
being able
llamada ya
to
son las
have to
11 y
receive
40
this
minutos,
opportunity from
porque usted me
ICW
dijo como
Latina,
secretaria,
being
bueno,
able
primero se
to,
tuvo que dar la
I know
oportunidad
that them
de
as the
presentarnos primero
secretariat,
a
they
nosotros,
needed to
bueno,
have
ustedes
this
que además
opportunity to show this to
somos
a group of women that we are
demasiado
really
fuertes y en nuestras
strong
decisiones
women
y
in our own decisions. We are the leaders and we are the ones that represents these chapters. And if this is not convincing, then I don't accept it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hivos, for this proposal. Thank you, Metoca, and thank you, the Magdalenas Network, for work together with us, because many times I know that we were not kind, or let's say that we were really strong in our own ideas, thinking if it will work or not. But thank you very much for sharing it with us and for adapting it to the HIV issue. I know, I believe it was a challenge for you. It is a challenge for us, but the success that we were able to reach and the transformation of the lives of women who had lived these processes, uh, it's worth the effort that we did in Guatemala. So, and I think that we're still moving on. I mean, right now, what is missing is economic resource, so we can move on, so we can continue spreading this methodology and to continue sharing this, and also being able to continue replicating this implementation, not only with this topic, but also with many more, no? So I think that this opportunity was great. So there's no enough words to express my gratitude. And here I can tell you that this is a woman that has been transformed, not only for the fact of being a woman, but also for the fact that getting to know that that I can have a better life. Thank you very much, Katia. Thank you for sharing your experience. Also, well, this was a new methodology for you at that time, this theater for the oppressed. Let's remember that this session is also being broadcasted by through Facebook Live, and it will also be included in the social media of the conference. So, what Katia was saying on how to deal and how to include this, how to embody this methodology, because it not only needed to be present in their mind, but also to include the body, to start conversing with the others. So in that sense, now I want to give the floor to Marilu Blanco. She is member of the ICW chapter Costa Rica, who will share her experience, her personal experience of this transformation. So Marilu, you have the floor now. Thank you, Andre, and greetings to all of you who are watching this conference. If I move a little bit, it's because I'm a little bit anxious. There's no words to thank God when I got this invitation, when Katia invited me to this workshop. Because what they did with this theater methodology really created a change in my whole life. I was, I used to be, I used to be a woman that I learned to live based on silence. I remained quiet and silenced. Through all my life, I always was like that. But when this workshop started in Costa Rica, throughout the days, in every session, in every exercise that we did, I was able to do it little by little, and I was able to face this change in my life, getting to know that I was not me. It was not me to blame about this violence that I was living. We always believe that we are the ones who provoked that type of violence and all the things that we live. We think that we are the ones to blame. So I started learning that that was not the point, that was not the case, that I had the right to say, no, that's enough.
Un ejercicio.
So personally, an exercise that after several years now that this training finished, I still remember that they asked us to build some sculptures, and we were all building these we were these guys, and we didn't know exactly that we were adapting to create a play. And I was just this mom that was taking care of the kids and that was also working and giving the money to her partner, and then the partner took the money away. That makes me think that I have the right. If I'm working to earn that money, I need to have that money for my kids. That this violence should stop. So for during these days within this retirement, it was like being in a cocoon, and then afterwards I wake up and I turn into this butterfly, but this butterfly was not being able to face again this violence. And I know that all these colleagues that are looking at me, they know exactly what I'm speaking about, because we came and we lived this experience, and then at the end of this workshop we ended being a completely transformed woman. So in during that workshop, I was also I needed to play the role of this violent man, and at that time, I faced many challenges also, because at that time I also remember when I was being violent and being aggressive. So I was looking at my colleague there, and I was playing the role of this violent man, and I was facing and I was feeling again that violence from her and also from my side as the role of this man. So at the end, well, I am so grateful with God, with ICW, Metoca, with Hivos, with all this for giving us this great opportunity of changing our lives. Then just because having this HIV condition, that doesn't mean that you are going to die. On the contrary, that makes me more strong, a more stronger, a stronger person. Being that woman that was not able to speak, that was always in silence and quiet. Now I feel like a child, always speaking, and so having always the time to ask what else needs to be done, what else. I always try to learn. So here in ICW, I'm also the secretariat, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be in the role of many more colleagues that unfortunately still they are living this violence. That it has really it's been hard, but it is important for them to give this first step, as I did it. I know that it's not easy. No, it is not like a magic stick that everything will end, but that they need to consider themselves as women, and that they need to think, that they need to know that life is beautiful. So, stating Katia, that Katia said that let's get some funds so we can keep on working and keep on helping and empowering women, because I know that we are valuable, and God gave us life to be here, to be happy, not to suffer. If He gave us that diagnosis of, or if He gave us that kind of life, we need to learn how to live it. We need to learn. We need to. Life is lived only once, because once that we are not here, we are in this transition. But let's remember, we all need to remember as women that every day of our life, we need to learn how to sew, and we need to learn to have more in order to share. And I would like to keep on speaking and speaking, but I know that we have a limited time to do so. But, well, I'm very emotional and happy when I was invited. I was just looking to the calendar, and a few days back I was nervous and I was thinking on what to say. But I know that God gives me these words that come from my heart to move on, to continue. I love this association. I love the representation that I have ICW in Costa Rica and all the women here at the regional level. Let's move on. Let's continue, because this fight is not finished. So thank you very much. I don't feel a less valuable person. The motto is that every day I learn more. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Pasarlas por el cuerpo.
Thank you for giving me this time to share my emotions and my experience. I congratulate myself because I used to be a person that doesn't speak. I used to be a very quiet person, and now giving workshops and participating in many meetings and taking decisions and helping. This is these are the things that I like the most.
Muchísimas gracias.
And for me, it represents a great blessing in my life. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marilu, for sharing your experience. It is so great to listen to you in this conference and to share with all of us this experience. Now, I would like to give the floor to Ruth Linares. She is national reference of ICW chapter in Costa Rica. Ruth will speak about how to show this in the play in front of an audience, and how to develop these national strategies. So thank you, Ruth. Hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure to see you all again in these new spaces that, without a doubt, listening to all of you makes my skin gives me goosebumps. So the most important thing is that we share these feelings, and because well, this has been a very transformative process. I strongly believe, and here in ICW Costa Rica, believe that challenges are the ones that makes life really interesting. And without a doubt, this methodology was a complete challenge. But we were able to demonstrate that day by day, overcoming those challenges are the things that made us give a meaning to our life. I want to tell you that I'm really emotional because being able to see the transformation in this woman, it's not only having this space in that retirement, because at that time also we were saying that let's go to a mountain, let's go to an open space. We wanted to have a space where we were able to reconnect with ourselves. So that was one of the nicest challenges that we were able to overcome. But being able to go and take that, going out from that retirement, and then being able to move and to go to other sectors, and to being able to show this play in real life scenarios, that was the great challenge, because at that time then we faced that, we realized that we regained whatever we mean as a woman, but now we needed to go out to share, to spread the word, and to yell the word what was going on with us, and what was the topic that we wanted to transform. We were also in those first steps, but that challenge on transforming society and raising our voices and demanding our rights, taking all those demands, that was one of the greatest challenges that we faced, but also very satisfying, because that's why I was saying at the beginning that overcoming is what gives meaning to life. Because I remember that the first time we were able to play, for the first time, we were able to play it in an auditorium, and we were able to have a full auditorium. We also knocked the doors with some social actors who were able to help us to were able to position not only the organization but also our demands. And then suddenly we were in one of the corridors. We were ready to play it. Some of us were a little nervous, and we were just looking through to the eyes of the other, wondering with this certainty and the presence of all of us together, belonging to this same team, belonging to this group that believe on what we were doing. Maybe that was the impulse that we needed just to show it in the scenario. So when we played that first one, we were able then to see the result was completely successful. I remember how many of us at the end were crying because of this happiness. And right now, no, we were saying, oh well, we were so proud that at the end we finished and we did it. But besides that, also the rest of the people who were there were also crying. They were also there because they react and they understood exactly what we were sharing, what we were portraying was a reality, and that many of those actors, many of those actresses just set a look aside. They didn't realize about our realities for so long because this topic of HIV and women was not considered a priority. In fact, today we are not part of the key populations. And however, I mean, we are telling Costa Rica and the world that we were there. And not because we were considered a priority within their agendas, that doesn't mean that we do not exist. So at that time, those strategic alliances started, so we can move on and we can continue with our work. I do also remember that the second time that we went to many more other auditoriums, we have the presence of psychologists, social workers, people that work at hospitals, and people from these governmental institutions, from the National Women Institute, from the Limas, from the citizens department, from the legislative. So we were able to take this play to these top levels. And at that time, we understood that this methodology was useful not only to be on this complain and poor me situation, but to move forward, but to transform the others as it has transformed us from the bottom of our being. And that was the tool and that was the methodology that we had to raise our voices. So when we understood that, when we understood that citizens and the rest of the people were identified with this, I remember that we ended the play and all of us took our hands and hugged ourselves, saying to all of us that we can achieve that, that we can do it. And there was one experience that really marked myself. When we were in these auditoriums with a selected audience, that represented a great challenge. But also presenting the play in an open space or in a hospital in Costa Rica to an audience completely different to the general public, that was one of the biggest challenges and the most satisfying one. Why? Well, because it was the common people, it was the regular citizens that were outside, that they were the ones who were identifying with these experiences that we were portraying in the plays, and they were the ones who reached us, and they were the ones who let us know, it also happened to me. What else can I do? You are not alone. So that experience itself, I remember we did that for an international AIDS day that the AIDS clinic of the hospital asked us to do it. So we did it in the open space at the hospital. And there were many people going, looking in fear what was going on with that play. So that gave me that certainty that we were able to go beyond that, that for any reason we shouldn't stop doing that, that we should knock more doors to take this play and to take this methodology to more spaces, but mainly for the general audience, so citizens wherever we go, they understand that HIV and women was not a fairy tale that happened in a different country in Africa or in Asia, that it could happen to anybody, to anyone, and that there were solutions, and that we and that we didn't want it to remain in this complaint status, that we are part of the solution. So I've used some of the words that describe these women that belong to this network, and the things that we are part of this because we believe on what we do. As Katia was saying, many times it is difficult for us to adapt to certain methodologies, and that is because we we not only need to have it in our body, but we also need to be certain that this methodology will be, as in this case, our flag. It will be our message, so we can reach the whole population, and so we can reach whatever is needed. And when I speak whatever is needed, I refer to all those women that many times and that still nowadays they are afraid to speak. And that, as Marilu was saying, they are afraid to say that situations are happening to them because in this whole society followed by this patriarchy schemes doesn't allow us to speak. And at that point, then we understood that if we are able to motivate the whole society from Costa Rica, then the most important thing was this motivation and transformation that we were living within ourselves. So I do strongly believe that we as women have an extraordinary power, not only to transform ourselves, but also to transform the rest. So this is what this methodology do for all of us. So I do remember that we met in the Institute of Social Welfare with all the gender unity from these institutions in Costa Rica. And all those women that were representing these gender units, they were really amazed and they were really surprised on getting to know about this methodology. It was not easy because they were the ones also who told us that they were in the middle of a process, or that they were in the middle of, let me say, on the middle of these bureaucratic processes of the institution that they were working in, no, from the state of Costa Rica. So it is not easy for them to believe in something and then just look in it so close and being not able to go beyond that. So challenges were there, and we were so happy to being able to reach these institutions. Challenges were there because we needed to continue knocking doors and breaking those barriers and filling the gaps. And still, it represents a challenge, mainly because of resources. And it is not so easy with this new reality. It is more difficult to take the play to many more corners within the country. However, that a transformation that we face within leadership of women that were part of this ICW network in Costa Rica is and has been like the iceberg tip, so we can reach many more spaces where we can transform them and to raise the voices of all those women that still are in silence. So I do believe that this the challenge that this methodology represents, the theater of the oppressed in Guatemala, not only gave us that impulse for all of us who participated to move on, but also the idea is to implement this strategy. And this idea has given us the sense on our daily basis as women, but also as a network of women. And also, as our motto says, that we are not alone, and that, of course, that transformative process can reach even the top levels. Because someone was telling me, but why trying to reach this institution it's so difficult? And I was telling them that what's the point on convincing ourselves among ourselves? We are really convinced. We are We understand exactly what is the situation, but even speaking with professional women, speaking with women that work in many of these institutions, they haven't had, as women, as an individual, they haven't had the opportunity to live this transformation. Marilu was mentioning before that it was not until we face and we live those processes by ourselves. It is not at that moment that when we realize that we are having this burden and that we are having this. So for those women that do not belong to any of these networks or to any of these organizations from civil society, they live that different, and that will be also another challenge, being able to reach those women that still they are closed within their own realities, within their own worlds, and that they had haven't had this great opportunity that we did, that from ICW Costa Rica, being part of this methodology and being able to work strategically within these alliances. So that was something else that I really value. And I do believe that gave us that impulse to take this motivation, to take this play to different scenarios. Because that first teaching in Guatemala not only was guiding us or not only was teaching us a different process, but it was also giving us the opportunity to work and to articulate this work within different alliances with other networks of women. And that is fundamental so transformation is successful. Because we do understand that everybody else, wherever we are, we all are women, and we all live through our body all those feelings, realities, difficulties, happiness, and in this sense, wonderful transformations, such as the one that we lived within this methodology of this oppressed theater. So I would like to finish encouraging you not to stop, not to stop, even though we're living this new reality individually, or if we have the opportunity to do it through the social media or through the internet to reach more women under any circumstance, let's not fail, and let's not shut our voices. Let's keep on taking opportunity of these marvelous spaces, and let me thank for that, because that is how we will shout the world that we are not alone and that we can transform ourselves. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ruth, que nos, bueno,
Thank you very much, Ruth.
este trabajo de empoderamiento
You
individual,
are able to express this empowerment at an individual level as well as a collective level within all the networks, the strengthening of the ICW, but also together with other networks. So with that, I want to share with you that we are just tuned with all of those who are giving your comments in Facebook. Manine Arens is greeting you. Jen, Carolina Echeverria, who also shares from the networks that work together with all this process. And with that, now I would like to give the floor to Lorena, who is part of Metoca. Metoca, it's a group of exploration of this methodology, of this theater of the oppressed people. And she's also part of the Magdalena International Network. This is a network that works with the play of the oppressed. So now I give the floor to you, Lore. Thank you for being here. Lore joins us from France, even though my heart is in Guatemala. From Latin America, I'm speaking. Well, first and foremost, thank you very much. Thank you to each one of all the women that are here present. It is very emotional to live again, to remember the process, and to listen to the impact that it has had through all the years. It really touches me, and makes me feel that it has this value. I want to thank you, but also I want to thank the more than 100 women in all around 11 countries that in Latin America were able to participate within this process with all those fears, with all those resistances, with all that suspicion, but they were able to open and that they gave their body, which is what we're speaking about. And each one of them, each one of these women were part of this process. And without them, this project was not being able to develop. So thank you for trusting us. So thank you for this, for that, for giving themselves to this project. So when we have this call and when we saw the invitation from the ICW looking at this necessity that we need to cover and that we want to investigate those, what are those violences that we live as women living with HIV. So then we noticed that ICW is a specific network within the network of, or within the world of the people living with HIV. So in that sense, we were able to project ourselves because we as this Magdalena network, we are facing and we identified those violences that we live and that we face. And we know how difficult it is, and we know how we need to tackle these fights. And we know that we need to have these spaces for women, that we know that we have to include these projects for all of us within us and for ourselves, because it is important to do this research from a place where we can trust and from a place where we can reflect on all of us, what we are trying to show. So the idea that the ICW promoted this project is telling us that we are important and that we should be priority within all the agendas. And not only because we are sex workers, and not only because we are having babies, no, because also because we are only women and because we are fighting and dealing with this diagnosis of living with HIV. So the idea is to be taken into consideration. So in that sense, we felt that this call was important to share this tool within the theater of the oppressed. We do believe in this technique and what the rest of the colleagues just mentioned. The idea is to be the center. We as women, not the perspective of the others, not the diagnosis, not the discrimination, or not many more people that are being aggressive with us. We are the center, and from us, we will do this research and we will see what's going on with ourselves. So we did this research from the body, moving it and expressing it through our own bodies, that it was really hard for all of us and that also mark us and also transform us at the end. Going on and moving on through this, through our own bodies and speaking about this diagnosis of HIV, those bodies that want to be controlled from the others, that telling that these bodies are dangerous or that these bodies should do what doctor says or that they shouldn't do what they don't say, or that they have this stigma of being a weak body or having these threats. So no, in that sense, these bodies were the ones who were going to investigate, were the ones who were going to sing, to dance, to play, being able to do this research. And as they were saying, not from these boys that I already have or not from these boys that I know, but just getting rid of this mechanization and I just get rid of this discourse. Just setting aside that discourse so another part speaks. So all our life experiences are the ones who speak. And sometimes we don't want them to speak because that creates the conflict. Wondering how come if I'm a great leader, do I need to recognize that I also live some violent situations in my home, or do I need to recognize that I also remain in silence? Or sometimes I need to say that I defend the rights of the other, but I don't defend my rights that I live in my home. And sometimes we will remain in silence because that also hurts. So letting that go, speaking out loud, just not to remain in this victim status, despite the fact that I'm also living a person living with HIV. No, I'm a victim. No, the fact is that I want to live living a life that I like, living a life free of violence, where I can have my voice heard, where Marilu, as Marilu said, where I want to learn, when I want to flourish, when I want to keep on learning, when I want to keep on speaking. So in that sense, with this theater of the oppressed, we research and we give voice to those voices, just to quiet all those discourses that many times were there in our brains. And in that sense, we are able to show and to express our own life experience, which is not only our own individual experience, but it is also a collective experience. That is also very important. And it is important to recognize. And one of the colleagues were also saying, the idea is to stop blaming ourselves and understanding that that violence that we are living is not because we did something wrong, because we need to realize that that it is at a structural level that it's affecting us, but it's not something that I did. It's something that comes from this social structure that we are living in. So from all those things that you already mentioned, that's where we started raising our voices. We do it in a safe space, just to transform that outside world. And at the beginning, no, the face that they gave us when let's do a play, and everybody were like with this resistance, and that Katia just mentioned, and not knowing exactly what are we going to do. Are we going to do a theater play? How come they are going to understand what we are doing? And all those things happen during this process, and how we were able to need all this collaboration, how we were able just that nobody gave us, that we didn't took for granted anything, that we were able to speak that common language. We were able to develop that trust, that ICW trusts that this methodology, and that we were able to feel comfortable, and we trust also and have that awareness and sensibility of what the ICW was portraying and was defending, being sensitive to that, and also being able to move on and to take that methodology to other countries. Also saying that that's a learning process, that these alliances are not taken for granted, that these alliances are developed because of the work that we did. And for that I need to mention Mercedes, because we didn't do it alone. And sometimes we need these mediators, and in that sense, Mercedes was really important, being able to help ourselves, that we were there following a common objective. So all this just for doing these social transformations, for to really change the life of many more, just not to leave something that was nice and good for all of us, but in reality is to know and to see that this has a great transformation within many more. And that with that, I know that there are many more spaces where our voices are being heard, where the voice of ICW is being heard.
¿No? De cómo llegaron al taller y todo el choque.
I just wanted to share how the experiences of how they get for the first time to this workshop that you already mentioned. But when we have these leaderships, and when we really battle for that, to take those, to have those spaces on how come if I'm this leader woman, how come I'm going to show my vulnerabilities? And part of the process and part of the strengths that we had is that we were able to open. We were able to say, yes, I'm a strong woman. Yes, I'm a leader, but also I live violence in my home. Yes, I'm a strong woman, but I also have difficulties with dealing with my diagnosis and with my treatment. Yes, I'm a woman, I'm a leader, but I'm also facing violence with the doctor that is giving me this treatment. No, and being able to open that. As if I speak, then many more are able to trust and to speak. And this is something that has to be denounced. And this is something that we shouldn't be ashamed of. So And I think that that really helped us to transform that idea of leadership, on how leadership is also to show our own vulnerabilities. And in that sense, we open the spaces so many more can also show their own vulnerabilities. And also, well, saying that this project was developed in a collective way with different networks. I'm here, yes, but I'm here together with all the other Magdalenas. Alone, I wouldn't been able to do it. We have many more members, Andreina Quiroz and many more, Camila, Miss Echeverria, Esperanza Mejia, and the voice of Barbara Santos, who supported all the Magdalenas to move on with this process. And without them, it would have been impossible with this perspective from the ICW saying, no, this is not possible, no, neither that. So now let's think again, because as we said, this methodology is for the individuals, for the people, not that individuals should adapt to the methodology. So that's why we needed to listen to you. So, and we appreciate your confidence and trust. And also through the theater of the oppressed, being able to see ourselves not as an HIV diagnosis, but as women, and what Areli mentioned in a different speech. There's the HIV pandemic, and now we have the other pandemic, the COVID pandemic. But there's also this pandemic of violence, of men that are violent to women. So how to understand that this violence, as the ICW mentions, is a cause and a consequence of the virus. And this is something that we need to attend. This is something that has to be attended. And that's why the importance on denouncing, because at the end, it turns killing more than the diagnosis or than the HIV itself. So this was an important axis. This was an important discovery that we had. So now I have to finish, and I briefly say that as part of, as one of the other colleagues said, participants came from different areas, from different regions, and in that sense, we have this an important axis, and it was racism. We need to understand that they are facing this social diagnosis of being women and facing this HIV diagnosis, but they also need to face this racism issue. It is not the same being an indigenous citizen. It is not the same to be a white woman or a black woman or a different from different culture. And let me just share with you an anecdote here. There was a black woman that shared this workshop, and she was there in Guatemala, and her hair was all straight. And then we were just researching what are those aspects of beauty within the culture and what are those beauty aspects that appear and did not appear. And then suddenly it started all opening these reflections. And when we went there to visit her in her national, to develop this national workshop, so she had her hair cut, and we asked her, "Oh, you cut your hair?" And then she said, "Yes." Within this whole process, it changed my mind, metaphorically and physically speaking, she said. So that's also important to mention. And how through that we can develop many more alliances, because when I understand myself, not only from this diagnosis perspective, but also if I understand myself as a woman, as an indigenous woman, as a black woman, there are some other approaches where we can create more alliances, and with that we can strengthen also this fight. And with that, I can say that this alliance that we create, and that I know that many more were developed, and with new ways on creating this activism from different cooperation perspectives, and not always as competition, that also revealing to that idea that we as women always compete, that we are not from this, not being these protagonic roles, but we are just leading from this genuine aspect. And for me, this oppressed theater is an aspect of hope. So thank you very much for
Muchas gracias.
inviting me. Thank you very much, Lorena. We are still having this echo of this hope and these alliances that we are now living. We also wanted to have this practical exercise and also showing all these attendees what is this methodology about. If this were a presential session, then we were just facing each other, and we want to share this methodology and do a practical exercise with some of the attendees. So let me give the floor to Katia now so she can share this exercise.
Gracias.
Together with Lorena. Yes, with this new reality, with this new way of communicating, this is also a new challenge, of course. We are trying to adapt all these opportunities, being able to speak with our bodies. So we kindly invite you. We want to invite you to turn on your cameras for all the attendees. If you can turn on your cameras, just the camera, if you can turn on the cameras. We will give you the time to open the cameras. So what we want to do here is a representation of this image and theater. We want to represent with our body, as Andreina was saying, with half of our body, because sometimes we are in this reduced space. We want to represent what makes us feel in this moment, a word that we will say. So how is that? Well, let's do an exercise, a test, a rehearsal. I propose that when I say one word, try to represent with your body whatever makes you feel, whatever this word makes you feel. Katia, I have, here it seems that the attendees cannot open their cameras. We thought, but let's adapt the instruction. Let's do it for those who we can open the camera. Let's show the attendees, and then later we see what does that image represents to us according to the word that we say. What do you think, Lore? Yes. Well, maybe if in the comments, if let's say that we give our own image about this word, and then in the chat, in the comments, if they can write the feeling, if they can write their answers to the questions, so at least we can have this interaction with the people that are attending this session. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. We can read the comments from the people that are attending this session. I can give you those comments. Okay, great. So let's do that. Okay, then. So let's practice. Let me give you the word, and then you show me what are your feelings. Dog.
Muy bien.
Okay, great. So now let's see this example to remember that what we want to do is when we listen to this word, what is the feeling? We don't want to represent that word. It is not that I need to be a dog. The thing is that what does that word makes me feel? It makes me be playful. It makes me feel fear. What does it makes me feel? So the next word is woman.
Muy bien.
Great.
Entonces, tal vez nos quedamos ahí un momento, quedémonos.
So maybe let's stay there in that image, and this is the time to ask the attendees what are the comments that they can add. What does this word represent to you? What do you see in this image? In these images, what do you see? What does this image reflect to you? What do you feel? What does this image make you feel? What is a common aspect or what is different? And they are just mentioning vulnerability, strength, power, strong, love, infinite enthusiasm,
Gracias.
joyfulness.
Podríamos sentir que de pronto genera
So we might think that it
nos trae a la
creates
mente alguna situación que violente,
a specific
alguna situación
circumstance that might be considered violent, do you think?
o solo a la fuerza.
Or just speaking about strength.
Menciona felicitas.
Felicitas mentions
Ok, muy bien, excelente. Bueno, vamos con
concern.
otra palabra, ¿cierto, Lore? Muy bien.
Okay,
Vamos
let's move on to a
vamos
different
con la
word
palabra
now.
Violencia.
Violence is the next word. Violence.
Muy bien, nos quedamos ahí igual unos
Okay,
momentos en esa imagen.
let's stay there for a few
¿Qué nos
seconds.
refleja esa imagen?
So what
¿Qué
does
nos hace
this
sentir
image makes you feel?
lo que nos refleja?
What does it reflect to you?
Nos trae a la mente algo
It
relacionado
brings you
a
something to your mind,
derecho,
something
¿qué sentimiento lo
related with rights,
podríamos
or what is the
pensar
feeling that makes you
en que alguien
sense?
que esté
You
representado
might
pueda
think
tener
that maybe
derecho a
someone
una
is
vida sexual
represented
plena,
there that might have the
derecho a una
right
vida
to
en
have a
salud.
sexual life
¿A qué puede
or
accesar? ¿A qué
to
no puede
have
accesar
access
de
to
pronto
health
una
services,
persona que se
or
refleje en ese sentimiento
let's
o en esa
say
opresión?
someone that might be shown or reflected within this oppression can have access to what?
Mencionan dolor,
And they are
invisibilidad,
mentioning pain,
la violencia no
invisibility.
no da espacio para
Violence
actuar,
doesn't give space
pavor,
to
no
act,
voz,
fear, no voice, fear,
miedo,
fear again,
Muy bien,
enojo.
anger.
muy bien, gracias, excelente.
Thank you.
Vamos entonces con otra palabra.
Let's move on with another word.
Teatro.
Theater.
¿Qué nos refleja esta imagen? ¿Qué similitud
So
encontramos?
what does this image reflect?
¿Cómo nos hace sentir?
What are the feelings?
¿Cómo nos hace sentir esta imagen?
How does this image make us feel?
Socialmente, ¿dónde sentimos que nos ubica
Socially speaking,
esta imagen?
where does this image place us within society, within our daily life?
Muy bien.
Mencionan
And they are just saying that we are open, that theater allows us to show us
inclusión,
is
jazz,
inclusion, expressiveness, freedom, energy, bliss, passion.
Teatro es posibilidad.
Theater is possibility. Theater is passion,
Lore, ¿tenías
freedom.
algo ahí?
Laura, you wanted to say something?
Muy bien. Tenemos una palabra más.
We have another word,
VIH.
HIV.
Muy bien, nos quedamos ahí.
Okay, let's stay there.
¿Qué les refleja esta imagen?
So, what does
¿Qué
this
les refleja esta
image
imagen
express to
relacionada con
you?
esta palabra?
This image and this
¿Cómo nos
word,
hace sentir?
how do you feel
¿Cómo
about this word?
sentimos que esta palabra y esta imagen se
How do you feel
relacionan con
that
nuestros
this
diarios
word
vivir?
and this image
En
is
lo que
related with our
pensamos, en lo que
daily
sentimos.
life, on what we feel, on what we express?
En una sociedad, en derecho,
Within one society, what can we feel with regards of human rights?
muy bien.
Okay.
Lucha, asombro, espacio personal,
Fight, awesomeness, personal space,
posibilidad,
sadness, reflection,
integridad,
respect, possibilities, inequalities,
miedo.
pain, shit.
Muy bien. Gracias.
Thank you.
Y vamos con una última palabra.
Then let's move on to the last word so we can analyze all the images and how they make us feel. Human rights.
vemos en esta imagen?
So what do we see?
¿Qué nos habla? ¿Cuál es la similitud
What does this image tell us within all the other
cómo nos
images? How do we feel?
y cómo llevamos esta imagen y esta sensación?
And how do we take this image and this feeling to the social reality that we are living? Does it limit us or does it give us options?
Gracias.
Compasión, lucha,
Compassion, fight, protection, determination to have a voice, care.
Muy bien, Lore, si me ayudas.
Thank you,
Entonces,
Lore.
bien, vamos a intentar.
So now let's try to do a sequence.
Están observando.
So whoever is observing, just see what does this sequence of images is telling us. What does it make us feel? What does it make us think? And within this sequence, I'm going to show you, and we're going to do each one of the images again,
Sin descansar.
but without having a pause within. In one, I'm like this, and in the other one. So how slowly I'm moving from one to another one, okay?
Y el público va a ir mirando.
And then the attendees will see exactly what's going on. So let's move. I'm not going to do it, so I can focus on looking at this sequence of images. So let's go on. Woman,
Mujer, la misma que hicimos.
the same position that you did, and now let's move on to HIV,
VIH
HIV,
y violencia.
violence,
Y teatro.
theater,
Y derechos.
and rights.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Ahora si nos pueden contar qué es lo que vieron.
If you can share us, what did you see? What does this sequence of images tell you? What did you discover with this transitioning?
Esta relación entre mujeres.
What about this relationship between women, HIV, rights, and theater?
Andre, ¿tenemos algo?
mencionan un proceso de
They are just saying that this is a process of transformation, that things might change. This sequence leads us to a moment where we can rename, when we can name again and we can demand our rights. This the theater is a path so we can recover strengths in the union and achieving rights. They are still debts.
Muy bien. Bueno, yo se me fue un momento la imagen y me sacó, entonces no vi el final del
I
proceso.
wasn't able to see the whole process because I lost connection in a moment.
Algunas. Pero yo creo que realmente es importante poder ver.
But I think that here it is important to see exactly how, even though we are in these constant fights, even though we're living these whole processes, we still can see exactly how our body speaks in a different way on what, at a social level, we want to determine. We can say that one word can give and can provoke many sensations and many feelings of what our reality is on a daily basis, or facing these situations on the fact of being woman, on how within the position that we are living, we can represent that feeling, that word. We can have these gestures that represent this word, or that might be some gestures that speak about a fight, or that speak about something that we are demanding, or something that, speaking about HIV, we still face lack of knowledge. We can still face this lack of knowledge that leads to discrimination and inequalities and differences. Despite many years of these constant battles and these different spaces and processes that are looking to have and that are looking to strengthening women so they can practice their right to live free of violence, we are still facing this situation. We still need to support many more people that are living these violences that go beyond HIV. That's one type of violence that they are facing, ones that they had acquired this infection, not being able to have to exercise a healthy reproductive sexual health. So how come even within our own societies we're still facing this situation? And one word may represent whatever we are facing or whatever it is causing based on a condition. Still nowadays we are facing, as of HIV, there is a huge gap, and we are still facing higher levels of violence. Violence is related to the risk of acquiring HIV infection, and significantly it's represented in women because we see it as a consequence of the risk of having it, because still many more women are facing and they are experiencing that they cannot exercise their own sexuality. They cannot speak about it, and they cannot say that whatever they are living is not correct. They are not allowed to have these free relationships, and that they feel themselves that they are not in this possibility to protect themselves by using condom or because of the whole violence situation that they live in. So still we need to build, we need to create, we need to work, and definitely many times our bodies speak themselves completely different on what we think. So when we have the opportunity to show our body the similitude on what we think is shown completely different in our own bodies. So thank you very much, Katia and Lorena, for this exercise. We have comments and questions. We have a 4-minute video to show you so we can visualize the other colleagues that participated within this process. So we are going to show you just a section from the video because it lasts 15 minutes. So I will also add the link of the video here in the chat for you to see it. So let's see just a couple of minutes of this whole process, not only to see the experiences from these countries, but also to get to know from other latitudes in a more regional level. Happy, I have a job, and I can earn money to take care of my kids.
VIH.
HIV. HIV. HIV?
No te voy a pagar. No.
Are you going to pay? No, I'm not going to pay. He's not going to pay.
A la Secretaría de Trabajo.
So now I will go and complain. I see that play at a worldwide level.
No se quede ahí, que siga adelante. Esas obras son de unas mujeres, de una
This
comunidad.
is a play from a community of women, and there we have this rhythm. They included these anecdotes. For me, it's really important to know that the fight of women is really interconnected. Interconnection is fundamental. Patriarchy doesn't work alone. Capitalism doesn't work alone. Racism doesn't work alone. So I do believe that they work interconnected. And I think that the response also has to be represented in that dimension. So within the communities, we will try to reach many more communities. So raise your hands.
Estaba pensando en grande, que ojalá que
I was thinking big. I was thinking on maybe let's have this play in all the 11 countries to replicate this theater. Why?
así nos identificamos.
Well, because in that sense, we can identify ourselves. We can identify in each one of these regions, in each one of these countries. We can identify the problems that we are facing, because I know that whatever is happening here, it happens in other countries also. So in that way, we can create alliances. We can create those alliances that we were describing in the play, such as a strategy of just to give in this voice of whatever is going on within these 11 countries, specifically with women. So we propose within this forum to create a change.
Gracias, Diego, que nos está colaborando también.
Thank you. Diego is also collaborating with showing the video. So we kindly invite you to see the video. The link is in the chat. Now we want to open a space for the Q&A and different comments that you had given us in the social media platforms, so we can close the session with those comments and questions. Gabriela Bonilla is she wants to ask Katia that if this methodology that you described had several resistances, or if the methodology itself had different strategy to reduce those resistances. Thank you, Andreina. Yes, yes. I do believe that through all of us that we face and that we live that methodology, we were facing that resistance also. We were able to see it and to identify it with the first group of trainers and at this empowerment level. And we were also able to see it within the facilitators. The methodology itself, according to the place that we were implementing it, we were able to adapt it to the realities of each one of the women, because it was created by different exercises. So there were some exercises that, let's say, that can be applied in a specific group of women, so they can start covering specific topics. Let's say topics that were felt more within those groups. And the guide of the methodology that we had allowed us to see exactly the sequence of exercises that we were implementing according to the spaces. Because once that we took that methodology to these empowerment groups, at least in Costa Rica, in different provinces, that they had the specific specifications on the culture. So we have these indicators on those exercises that can apply in those spaces. So it was not a whole process that needed to be within these 10 days, but the methodology allows us to divide it or to separate it according to the spaces according to the empowerment of the women that we were working with. Also, the topics that were defined were also very assertive, and those topics that we were guided to implement, because it all started with identifying the type of violence and violences that they lived. So we were going step by step, and in that sense, we were able to grow within that same topic. So while we were just stating this is the topic that is interesting and that it's important for this woman, for this group of women to participate with, and that openness also allows to build on that resistance. Thank you, Katia. We also have this question on how you turn this trust and confidence. How does these resistances turn into trust and confidence? Well, as they don't want to answer.
Es que me costó un toque. A ver, aquí. Ahí, ya, ahí. Bueno, inmediatamente al escuchar la pregunta me transformó.
When I heard this question, immediately I moved to that first experience when we were able to show that play in a general audience. It turned into trust when we were able to move on or to transition that methodology through our own body, and when we were able to understand that we were able to transform first ourselves, and that it is because of our own transformation and with our own example that we can transform the others, that we can transform the outside, or that we can transform the exterior, or that we can transform these gaps or the institutions that are there. But mainly, I do believe that it was fundamental, the testimonial of that audience that faced that first play, because we started at that first play, we were facing those realities. We were accepting that it was happening at that time, that to stop, not to continue quieting ourselves. When we started seeing people that were identifying with our own reality, that meant that it was not our own reality, that turned into a collective reality. So in that sense, not only the words gave us certainty that we were doing it properly, and not only that gave us that trust, but also the non-verbal communication, not only for the forum, from the theater, but also this non-verbal communication from the audience, no? When they were crying, or when they were just smiling, or they were just cheering up, or at the end of the play, they were clapping and they were standing in ovation. So because they really understood the message. So I think that non-verbal communication was fundamental for us to understand that they were not only accepting the message, but also they were just making their own to take it to other spaces.
Gracias, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth.
No tenemos preguntas concretas.
We don't have like a specific or concrete questions, but we have several comments. One colleague is sharing that they had several difficulties in order to get a job, and that she would like to have a connection with one organization. Maybe you can contact her as an international level. There's the ICW, and they have chapters in Latin America, but it is also a global community. So if you can write down your contact information, we can contact you and we can have communication, maybe contact you with some of the organizations that are in your country. There are plenty of comments on congratulations about this whole project.
Liliana.
Sí, yo quería nada más, porque me quedé como analizando una de las cosas que más se reflejó
I just wanted to say that one of the things that showed a lot of trust and that also created that freedom within us was the fact that we were able to overcome all those fears. At the moment that we as women overcome fear to express ourselves and to recognize ourselves as the woman that we are, as the human being that we are, at that moment, when we overcome that fear, at that moment we felt that level of trust and we felt that level of extraordinary freedom. I just wanted to say that because that was one of the biggest challenges to overcome our fears. Yes, and
Gracias, Ka. Yo solo quería agregar a lo que Ruth está diciendo, que de ese miedo se transformó en valor y fuerza.
to what Rudy is saying, that fear turned into strength and courage. That capacity that we all have, that we didn't know that we have, and that we were able to discover it through all this process. So thank you. And I just wanted to say that I don't know if it was in the chat, but they were saying that how were you able to convince the donor to apply this methodology? I might not have the answer. Maybe Merce and Ruth can answer also this question, but I know that the process was not easy. I know that the process of getting resources for these proposals was not easy because first it's asking for funds for women because most of the funds are directed to some other populations, but not for women. And also, well, through all these 25 years of these empowerment processes, there's big gaps with regards of the support groups, which was part of the proposal, that the idea was to take this to these support groups. And at that time, I think that this idea was created, that this was a proposal not for support groups, but for empowerment groups. And it was also difficult for us within the process. Once that we showed the proposal and when we spoke about these groups, we were truly convinced that this was not a support group, but that it was an empowerment group. As Merce was saying, these were empowerment groups who face these transformation processes because it was not a support group. It was not tapping the shoulder. And those were part of the challenges. So the idea was to get these funds to this proposal.
Perfecto. Hay un comentario.
Thank you very much. There is another comment that says that my growth within this theater for the oppressed has been a great challenge, and being able to express with our own body and being able to demand and denounce our violence and ask for our human rights, it's completely different. So I can speak about my own experience denouncing that in the rural areas are different, but this theatrical experience have been important and relevant and has taught us to be empowered even though it's not easy. So this is part of the comment from Liliana Núñez, who also participated within these processes. And there's one last question, and maybe we can close. Telma Garcia is asking if there were some other languages included, because there are many indigenous communities.
Bueno, por lo menos en Costa Rica no, ¿verdad? En Costa Rica no tuvimos esa oportunidad de realizar.
At least in Costa Rica, we didn't have that opportunity. We didn't have the chance to do so, but however, I feel that maybe the experiences in some other countries, such as in Honduras, they had that participation. And I think that also in the Dominican Republic, where they did certain adaptations so they can work it with these indigenous communities. And I think that also in Panama.
Sí, bueno, tal vez mencionar que sí.
Yes. Just to mention that this methodology and all the exercises proposed
permitieron, por lo menos yo lo
allowed, at least I was able to see it
en varias comunidades,
in several communities. We were there in one community with Lorena. That is, well, this methodology, it's possible to implement it, even though they don't understand because they speak a different language, and all who are participated. I remember that I was in one community, and there was a combination between Spanish and the indigenous language that they were speaking, Quiche, yes. So I don't know how, but we were able to work together. We were able to understand each other. We were able to create, to speak, and to show it, even though we didn't speak the same language. So that's one of the potentialities that we have with this methodology. Also, within this regional methodology, there were many more that they spoke. They were speaking in their own languages. Let's say that the whole proposal was not developed in different languages, but yes, we were able to include and to incorporate them. Even with this anecdote, with including this song, that it's a key factor in this play. So.
No, complementaría porque realmente es eso, el lenguaje que usamos.
Yes, well, the language that we use, it's not the spoken language. It's not the spoken language of a specific one. No, it's not Spanish or any other. It's the language of the body. So when the body speaks, and that's what we insisted, less words, no? But and they were saying, but they won't understand it. Yes, and we tell them, yes, it will be understandable, because many times with sound, with movement, with many more, we can convey the message, we can transmit, we can convey it from this awareness and sensibility rather than using words. So in that sense, that was also the strength of this methodology. And in that sense, the play was trying to show that, to denounce and to use a language that is not conveyed through the words, and that's the result. So with this, we can close. Before that, I would like to thank also HIV 2020 and each one of the panelists who participated in this session: Lorena, Rofe, Katia, Marilu Blanco, Ruth Linares, Mercedes Álvarez, and Andreina Quiroz. Thank you for your presence here.
Gracias.